Welcome back to another Glencoco Caller of the Week segment. I'm really excited because today I'm joined by Dana Cannon, and Dana has been one of the largest success stories on Glencoco in terms of your achievement on the platform, etc. And I'm really excited to be chatting with you today. How are you doing, Dana?
Doing good, and thank you for that really nice intro.
Of course. So, Dana, I think a great place to start would be if you could tell us about sort of how you found out about Glencoco and sort of what was your experience like, be it in sales or whatever it is. Like, what was your career trajectory like when you found out about us, and what were you doing when you found out about us, and what made you decide to give it a shot?
So I came from a real estate background of 12 years. I'd been a real estate agent with a small team, but I'd also recently started a family. I'd had my second child, and I was kind of not. I guess I was burnt out from real estate, and I was trying to look into other options that I could use my background in real estate and sales because I also have just a general sales background.
Mhm.
And I was trying to transition. I found a platform that was kind of helping people upgrade their resumes and things of that nature. And they suggested that if you need experience in as an SDR, which is I was trying to transition to tech, that Glencoco would be a great way to do that. And also you make money. And so I'll be honest, I was a little intimidated at first of like, oh, there's training and all of this involved, and I don't know if I'll have time because I was kind of a stay-at-home mom for the
Right.
most part for two kids under five, or I think under three at the time. So or four. So I eventually though I was like, you know what, let's just do this. You need extra money and you need experience. You're kind of applying to positions and not really getting it. So let's see what this can do. So I trained, I started training on some of the different options or different companies that I could work for through Glencoco. And I just got on the platform. And once I got on the platform, I realized how easy it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, I should have been doing this months and months and months before.
Right.
And kind of just took off from there.
That's awesome to hear. And something I would love to sort of double click on is from what was your experience like from signing up to like getting approved to call on a campaign? Did you feel, how was that training experience within the context of Glencoco? And then from when you got approved to making your first call, how much time was, when you got approved to booking your first qualified meeting, right? Like, what was like sort of the time expenditure on that side of it?
So I would say again, I think there's, and it's not just me, I think a lot of people feel this roadblock when it's almost like a roadblock of intimidation, essentially. You're like, this looks like a lot to do. I don't know if I'm going to, actually make money off of it. Because honestly, a lot of things are scams out here. So, you're
Yeah.
not even sure if this is actually going to be legit and actually going to work. But I gotta say, like, once you understand how Glencoco works, it's kind of like, why not just give it a try? So I think I started training on something to like the end of October. And then I just started to give it a try. The way I decided on what to train on, I started once I was able to see like where people were being successful, I was like, okay, let me try where people are being successful and let me train on that. But from the initial training, once I got, it didn't take long. I thought it was going to take me like a week. It took maybe a day. And then the training, I mean, the audition itself, I auditioned or interviewed, I don't know how you want to say it, did a recording
On, on,
and
yeah.
auditioned. And then I got approved, I think, within 24 hours. So this was all within a few days. And then by the end of that week, I think I'd made my first appointment. Like my first day on the phones, I made an appointment. I was like, oh, this is pretty easy. Now we just got to get him to show up. But
Yeah.
making the appointment was pretty easy.
So I mean, and that's a large part of sort of, you know, what what we're focused on at Glencoco, right? If you think about what our role is, right? It's we are the marketplace maker, but we are also sort of the stewards of efficiency on the marketplace. And that's both for our customers as well as for our callers, right? Our customers, we're making sure that it's super efficient for them to upload leads. We can even upload leads for them, et cetera, et cetera. But on your side, right, we're making sure those leads are good quality. We're also using our AI powered dialer, and I would, and that is a large part of what makes it easy. So if you
Yes.
could
Hmm.
kind of tell me about what your experience was like using the AI dialer itself, like, and I don't know, had you done cold calling before
Yes.
in any capacity? And if you could kind of compare that to what you were doing before, that would sort of help us get some valuable
Sure.
context.
So in terms of cold calling in the past, like I said, I do have a sales background. So at one point I was working for AT&T Interactive Advertising, which is online advertising for AT&T, and I was calling on small to medium businesses. I had to make like 200 calls a day. So I had that background, and then also as a real estate agent, you're cold calling and farming for new customers. So I will say, calling someone who is a homeowner and calling a business owner or an HR director or a manager at a hotel, a lot easier than calling a homeowner because there's a lot more like personal attachment to someone's home. So they are, very easily going to hang up on you. But I already had in me the idea that they're going to say no, but the dialer makes it easy because you know that there's someone else that is just going to keep calling until you get someone else. So that first person might say no, but there's 1,600 leads in that pot. So
Right.
there's got to be someone who's going to say yes.
Yeah. And that to me is sort of where a lot of like SDRs lose time is, to me,
Yeah.
it's like the time in between the time on the phones,
Hmm.
right? Like there's still so many inefficiencies in the process. And our approach at Glencoco is like, hey, what if we maximize the amount of time a talented salesperson spent having conversations? Like, that's the main thing, because everything
Right.
else, like updating a record, or like punching a number in, right, any of these things that are not literally you pitching someone is like time in between. That's like time not pitching, right? So
Hmm.
can we just reduce that to the bare minimum, so you're maximizing your time just doing like the revenue generating activity,
Definitely
right?
having the dialer, I think, is a huge portion of it. So I think if you're like kind of new to sales, you may not even think about how important that dialer is. But imagine if you had to make all these calls on your phone. Now your own personal phone is tied up, and like you said, it takes time to go in and dial everyone's number individually. But having a dialer that's calling more than one number and you're only getting the people who are connecting, I think that's paramount to the success of your role at Glencoco.
So you signed up, in like within 24 hours you were approved to call, and then within like a day or two from that you had your first qualified meeting. From that point on, so what was your sort of internal calculus of the ROI? So like the amount of time you were spending on Glencoco and what you were getting out of it, right? Did you have a sense for that, or a sense for how you were tracking that? Anything you could tell me about that would be super interesting.
Sure. So once I made like one or two appointments and I saw how the rhythm works, I then started to create goals or KPIs for myself. So
Mhm.
I would say, okay, you are going to spend this solid hour just making calls on this solid hour, and you have to get one appointment. The goal is to get one appointment per day. If you make more than one appointment, you're exceeding your goal. And that was just what I did. I just made sure I made at least one appointment
Mhm.
um, to get to where I wanted to get. Now, it also depended on the amount you would get paid on each appointment. Like some appointments, I was getting paid, I think, 350. I think that was 350 or 400 was the most I got paid per appointment, which is amazing because I just said I spent 1 hour on the phone. So 1 hour and I make one appointment that I'm going to make $400 on. To me, that's
Good deal.
good deal. Yeah. Hmm. And
Uh,
I don't know what I can't tell you because I'm not looking at it how much I've made overall on Glencoco, but I do know how many hours I spent. I think I made around almost $8,000, if not eight, very very close to it, in a fairly short amount of time, and that's spending. I think I spent 33 hours
mhm.
on the phones. So if
Yeah,
you were to, if I'm not doing the math, but if anyone out there just wants to do that quick ROI, you can see what that would look like, what that looks like.
that's about $242 an hour if
Yeah,
you did like the on the phone time.
yeah,
Uh, Obviously, look, I think it's important to note that you are an exceptional salesperson.
Yes, I should
And
say that. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I'm not
no,
new to this,
pat
in
you on
all
the back.
fairness.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You are an exceptional salesperson, right? And I think this is sort of one of the interesting things about Glencoco, which is I think eventually, right, like further down the line, I see a universe in which we are teaching people to go from like the 0 to 1 of sales. But right now, Glencoco isn't the platform to do that on, right?
Hmm.
But for people with sales experience, right, like yourself, and it might not have been B2B SaaS sales like pure
Yeah.
SDR experience, but
Hmm.
you were in sales roles, you were making, you went through the motions of cold calling, you're familiar with working your way around a CRM, right? These kinds of skills, right? If you have them, I think our goal is, hey, someone who has those skills can show up to Glencoco, get productive, and get super efficient real quick, right? So, like, I mean, $240 an hour is an awesome soundbite. I'm gonna clip that right now, right? But I think the experience of the salesperson matters quite a bit,
Hmm.
and there's also a variety of campaigns on Glencoco. So I think it might be interesting if you could tell us about sort of what was your decision making matrix in terms of which campaigns you chose to call on, like, or which ones you chose to audition for, because we had quite a few,
Hmm.
right?
So I'll say this for those who aren't familiar with Glencoco, the great thing about it is you have a range of payouts essentially. I think the lowest was at the time 125, the highest went up to 900. Now, of course, everyone wants to go for those 900, deals or appointments, but that's going to obviously be a little harder to get. And what I did was I looked at the amount of leads that were available, and I looked at how many people were calling into those leads. And I also looked at, because we were able to see like when someone else made an appointment, you could actually listen to those appointments. I also looked at where are people making the most appointments, where are people being the most successful, at least where I started. And I also, of course, before I did all of that, I started with what interests me. Like, what do I think I would be good at calling on? Because I think just a general sales idea is like, if you're not convicted in what you're selling, how are you going to convince someone else to be convicted in it? So I started with something that I felt like I kind of had some kind of familiarity with. And then from there, I started looking at other people and saying, okay, everyone seems to be making a lot of appointments with this. The number one salesperson is making a lot of appointments with this one company. Let me train on them and see how I do. And let me listen to their calls of success and, take some bits and pieces and take the script, which I think is important. People know that you guys give a script, and take the script, make that my own, and try to be successful that way.
And I think that there's something, I think that's a great process. And I think there's something about the fact that, you take the time to learn from other successful pitches. Like, I
Absolutely.
think that's a large part of, I wish every caller, that's anyone watching this and anyone deciding to sign up on Glencoco, right? Like, they really internalize that, because it's not like a me against the other salesperson sort of vibe, right? It's more of like, hey, here is the hive mind of the best way to pitch XYZ product, right? And we have multiple products, multiple
Hmm.
campaigns. And I think the ability for people, that are like, hey, I can get a pitch out. I'm like pretty good at pitching. And if you have that, and then you're like, okay, let me go see what successful pitches are. The amount of time it takes you to listen to it, like 5, 6 successful pitches, and then sort of emulate that, or turn yours into something that mirrors those. Like, if you have the experience, it's actually pretty quick. So I think that's something that's helpful. And then the lead count stuff, is another big thing, like something that we've done since the last time you called on us, because I know that you've now successfully transitioned into like SDR roles, which is
Yeah.
like, I think that's like our ideal Glencoco story, right? Like someone that kind of does the Glencoco, sales experience, use Glencoco, then go from Glencoco onto like greater things, and maybe come back to us once in a while,
Yeah.
right? To
Hmm.
call for us.
Well, what I was going to say actually is that one of the great things about Glencoco is the community that you've created throughout that. So you were mentioning about being kind of team minded, and I do think you have to be a slightly competitive. You have a little
Of course.
competition in you, to be a salesperson in general.
100%.
So, but I also think the community you created. So for me, as I began to become more successful on the site, people started reaching out to me on LinkedIn. I would get emails and text messages and phone calls of people saying, "Well, how are you doing this? I'd love to talk to you." And I talked to every one of them I could, because I think there's room for everyone to be successful. And if I can just help you, then I'm happy to do so. But
Right.
I say that to say, even though I was becoming, more successful on the site, there were other people who were successful in different campaigns that I wasn't successful in. So
Right.
I would reach out to those people and say, "Hey, I love to maybe do a role play with you and just see how I can pick up what you're putting down so that I can be successful, because I can't make any appointments in this campaign, but you seem to be killing it." So
Right.
I just loved that community that was created. I mean, I would almost say I made friends through Glencoco, because I would talk to some of the people, off of the platform, and we chat a bit about, well, I'm struggling here, or I'm doing great here, and we would work together. So yeah, I think the community is really important. So you don't feel like you're not like completely alone trying to figure all this out.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's such a valuable point. And yeah, it's thank you. Like that's what I was talking about, right? Like there's this notion of like a zero sum game where everyone's competing against each other. And I think the competitiveness is definitely a factor. Like, we run bonuses for like people that are top in leaderboards, right? That's just part and parcel of the sales hustle. But
Hmm.
I also think there's this healthy competition of like, hey, let's figure out together, this is the best way we go at it. And now let's see who, like, we have the best enablement materials, we have the best sales tech, we have the best leads. Now let's see who can crush it, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
think that's exciting. That's an exciting atmosphere,
Hmm.
right? And that's what we try to create on Glencoco. So what something I'd love to sort of ask about is, you had this unbelievable sort of uh, run on Glencoco, and then you sought other opportunities after. Would you say like the experience on Glencoco helped with that? What was that experience like? So you found out about us, you spun up on us, you had success on Glencoco, you were crushing it, right? And then you were looking for like more full-time sort of engagement, which I completely understand. But like, were you able to sort of take anything from your experience with Glencoco and apply it further ahead?
Absolutely. So, one thing I was able to do is obviously put everything I did with Glencoco on my resume. So now, coming from someone who was trying to break into tech, who had no tech experience, even though I have sales experience, that wasn't enough to get people interested in me in entry level roles. But now that once I added what I'd been doing at Glencoco onto my resume, that I'm making these calls, X amount of calls per hour, or that I have X whatever the show up rate, because that you guys show that for us. I put
Mhm.
that on there, or that I made President's Club with Glencoco. All of that kind of stuff are buzzwords on your resume as well, and that really helped me get into the role that I'm in. But in addition to that, the skills that I learned while I was at Glencoco about kind of almost how I set up my day and how I attack calls. It actually, because some things are a little different. You may have sales experience, but how you reach out to people may be different for the different campaigns. So using those kind of skills that I obtained through Glencoco, helped me be successful in the role that I'm in now.
That's awesome. That's so lovely to hear. And honestly, like, it's part of the reason why I'm in the job, right? Obviously, one part of it is to make
Of
money, but like the other part of it
course.
is like, it's awesome to hear these stories. It's like genuinely fulfilling, right? To see someone who has sales experience, is clearly like a good salesperson with like great innate sales talent, using Glencoco as like a way to hone their sales skills, develop like, B2B SaaS sales skills, and then use
Mhm.
that as a slingshot into the next thing, right? I think what we're nearly at time, and what I'd love to sort of wrap with is sort of looking back, right? If you were to be able to talk to like a user that's watching this video, or like someone that's kind of poking around on the Glencoco website trying to figure out if it's right for them or not, like what would be some advice you'd give to them?
Hmm. Because I feel like I've given a lot of this advice to people in general. So my main thing is You just have to have some fortitude. You can't just give up because people tell you no. They're going to tell you no. That's not a big deal. Push through the training to get you to get at least to start making calls. Because like I said, it was a roadblock for me. It was like a mental roadblock where I thought it was going to be difficult, and it really, really wasn't. Um, so I would say the fortitude. I would say a tip would be to, which I think helped me with my appointments, is to always follow up and make sure people are going to show. So you're not surprised if they don't show, because if you're new to the platform, that's how you get paid, is if they show up for the appointments, not just setting them. Um, and I guess use all the tools that Glencoco offers to help you grow and to be more successful.
Um, that's excellent advice. And on the show up piece, like just to sort of underscore that, right? And I keep trying to tell people this, I, like like we have built a system where the leads lists are so good and like the qualification criteria are pretty objective to where like if you got someone from the leads list to show up to a meeting, the odds are they're going to be qualified, right?
Hmm.
Like we
Hmm.
we, we average at like the odds break in your favor. It's like a 70%
Yeah.
70% like hold rate. So 70% of meetings that run are qualified. And so like getting meetings to run is more than half the battle won.
Hmm.
I think that's like a large part of it because people book the meeting and you get that initial hit of adrenaline and like dopamine. You're like, yeah, I got one. But then it's
Hmm.
like, we got it. Well, the meeting's not today. It's 2 days
It's
from now. So you
exactly.
for people to show up, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and I think you were excellent at follow up, and it really paid dividends, and it shows. Um, well, uh, to wrap up, Dana, you are our caller of the week. It was
Oh.
so lovely to talk with you.
Hmm.
And I wish you all the best in your future like SDR sales endeavors. And if you ever got a couple of spare hours, come check us out at Glencoco. We'd always
And
love
I
to have
definitely will. I definitely
you.
will.
Um,
I- I'll
so
definitely always come back to Glencoco. I mean, if I'm looking like to make a couple extra dollars for, I don't know, Christmas or birthday or something I want, Glencoco is definitely the way to do that. So,
awesome.
mhm.
Well, hey, thanks so much for your time today, and have a lovely day.
All right. Bye, Rit.